Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Original Book Nerd, and today I'm with Maddie Danielle, and we are diving off the deep end into her latest release, Uncaged Desires, which is a Why Choose MMA romance, and it's book one of two in a rapid release duet. So, yes, while this is releasing at the end of January, book two is coming at the end of next month. So, there's not very long for you to wait. And what better way to kick us off with someone already wanting to know, are you officially in your dark romance era?
So I'm a total mood writer. Don't feel like I'll have just one, I couldn't stick to just one thing ever. So I'm in my dark era right now, but next is not dark. So after these, I'm a part of an anthology that is dark. And that comes out at the end of April. And then after that, I'm going pretty opposite cinnamon roll sweet man. But here's the thing, probably come back to dark romance at some point. I can't stick to one.
So, off of that one, this book is releasing today. So, we are doing a live release interview. How does it feel to have kind of your first darker Why Choose romance out there?
Scary. It's so scary because it's so different. Like my first series was gray, as people described it. It wasn't dark, it wasn't light, but it was just kind of gray. And this is the first, like, this is dark. And I didn't think that when I was writing. I mean, I'm like, yeah, this is darker. Like, this is definitely dark. But I wasn't like, oh, this is like dark. And then people read it and are like, girl. And I'm like, oh, got it. So it's scary because it's so different. It was like, the Denver Dragons, pretty light for the most part, some heavier topics, but pretty light. And then to just like full 180 is scary, but I've gotten good feedback. I've gotten people enjoying it, so that helps. But to like have it out there is like, okay.
Well, I know us on your beta team absolutely devoured it both times because we just didn't say no when you gave us the beta copy, but then turned around a couple weeks later and said, "Oh, hey, well, here's the arc."
Sure.
We were just like, "Give it to us," because Max was perfection. I have a question from one of the arc readers. So they were curious. So you've mentioned that you are more of a mood writer. How different was your mindset going into dark romance, kind of coming off of, the Denver Dragons, which I don't want to say were light and fluffy because they all had topics, but comparatively, they were very light and fluffy.
Yeah, compared, it's definitely like puppies and rainbows. It was it was a shift and I knew, and I was kind of like entering my villain era kind in a way, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. It was There was like some stuff going on that was like that helped. It was like, you know what? Just F it. I want to just go full dark, full send. And so that helped. It was just like life. And then, yeah. But it was hard writing it still because it was like, again, I didn't think it was that dark until reading it back and having people say something. So then I'm like, and I had to tone things down the first draft, especially Cain. Um, so it was a shift. It was definitely, and that's why, though, when I was about halfway through Obsessions, I was kind of like, okay, I'm ready for like a Friends to Lovers or like a cinnamon roll because I'm such a mood writer. So that's, I'll never, I don't know.
And for those of you who don't know, Uncaged Obsessions is the title of book two. And I'm going to go ahead and ask this out of turn, but a lot of us want to know book two, are we kicking off where we end book one, or will there be a small jump?
I wrote it as one book and then split. So there's no time jump at the start.
Going back to the dark, so when you were writing this, Max has a lot of sensitive elements to her character story. How challenging was it for you to kind of balance this will be a dark romance and there will be characters that trigger, or maybe that should trigger but don't necessarily trigger, but keeping the balance of her not being reactive and just responding to the outside stimulus she's getting from the three guys in the book?
I think for Max, her entire life, like she went through a lot of trauma, but a big thing was her control was always taken away from her, from everybody in her life. Like she was essentially a figure in everyone else's life and not her own. So this was her like taking her power back. And a big way she was doing that is exploring things, the darker things that she didn't think were okay or she was shamed for in her past. In so, like to like she could be triggered, but she wanted it. So she was kind of fighting this I want this but it's wrong mentality the entire time. And the guys kind of knew her better than she knew herself, and they're like, you can take it. You got this. But really we're going to have a guest. Um but really she was taking her power back in her way.
Which is very true up until that cliffhanger you left us all on.
Right.
Which I know a lot of people dropped comments, expletive emojis about the wonderful ending you leave us on. And all we're gonna touch on that ending is that the happy ever after is coming.
Mm-hmm.
We just might have a little bit of an up and down hill to go through before we get there, based off, well, if you've read it, you know who exactly I'm talking about, but based off who accidentally opened his big mouth to the wrong people.
But
So
there,
thank
yes,
you
there
very
is a
much.
happy ending. It's just a journey.
But on the topic of the guys this time, and this is actually a reader submitted question, so you can't throw the hate at me for asking it this time. But of the three of them, which one did you resonate more in book one and why?
Who do I like resonate with?
Yeah.
Ooh. My thing with the guys is like Cain took over book one, and I know that. I was, because Megan is one of my alpha readers, and she was like, "Are you sure this is a why choose?" Like when I was halfway in, I was like, "I don't know anymore," because Cain was just so dominating the entire time. But I don't think I really resonated with him because he's so crazy. I would say, God, that's so hard because just all of them. Like Drew, I love Drew's softer side. But then Adam, I like his like control and like keeping his cool kind of, but he's, older and more so. I don't know.
Well, I am very much Team Drew. I like Drew. I really like how he instigates Kane on like every turn he can.
Oh yeah.
I, I was like sitting there and I was like, oh no, this is when she's gonna do it. This is when Drew's gonna disappear. I was like, this is gonna happen. And then I was like, phew, made it through book one. Now I
I
just
know.
do the next kind of a pivot, but similar. There is a scene in this book that explores different areas of darker romance, and it is I'm trying to think of how to describe it in kind of a PG-13 way, but I can't find it. But it's kind of it's the scene where they take her and they chase her with
Ah, the woods.
motorcycles. How did you know that Max was going to step up so well to the challenges of that scene with her past? Because that would be a potentially triggering area for her.
It would be, but I think because she was taking her power back, and that was the first time she was like more accepting of these darker desires that she has had, and that these guys were kind of validating them for her rather than triggering her, because she's like, I've wanted this, I've been shamed for it, and now I'm getting it. And even though she fights and she, tries to deny it because she still has that, kind of the voice in the back of her head saying like, this is wrong, this is bad. But she does accept it because I feel like they give that to her and make it okay for her.
So, this is a Drew question. Are we going to explore more of how Drew became the way he is in book two?
Yes.
And
Very
will
early.
we finally see him and Adam become more or less contemptuous with what is going on with them.
Yes, yes, but it takes a minute. One of my beta readers described them as emotionally constipated. And that's how I've said it the entire time. That I'm like, yes, they are emotionally constipated. But we get there with the help of Max because she is like, you guys need to figure this out. But yes, it takes a minute.
Does it take longer for Adam? Because I feel like Drew's less so at this point. Or
So
does he begin to unravel more on
they
Drew's?
he begins to they both do. They both of them what happens in book 2 makes everyone kind of accept things a little bit better. So, but he's still I think he actually accepts it before I think he admits it before Drew. Drew may accept it, but they're both emotionally constipated, so there's just yeah, no.
Going off of some events that need to happen in book two, the way you ended the first book, is this going to throw the guys into a tailspin going into book two?
100%.
Will the guy who has the biggest reaction coming off the ending of book one shock us in our theories?
Probably not.
I was betting it was Cain,
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say he has the biggest reaction too.
and I was like, but Drew he could shock me.
I mean, they all have a big reaction, but Kane's is the worst. So,
On the topic of Cain, there's also Adam likes to mention in his very mysterious way, well, you don't know, like, Cain's past. You don't know, the darkest parts of him. Is that going to be explored where we finally learn, like, how morally compromised is Cain? Now, we already know some, but are we
yeah.
going to learn, like, the down and dirty on him?
You learn more about all of their past and all of just everything. The first book I feel like is very much focused on Max and like their obsession with her and how just like how they become obsessed with her. And then the second one is more on the guys and you learn more about them, who they are, what kind of made them that way, and gets that like deeper level beyond just the obsession, if that makes sense.
So, coming off that, the first book is called Uncaged Desires.
Mhm.
Was there a meaning behind the title for that book?
So, my cover designer Kim came up with it, actually. I am terrible at naming my books. My editor came up with the hat trick for me. I ended up coming up with the other titles, but then I had no idea what to do for this. And so she like gave me a list. And I was like, "Ooh, that's the most fitting." So there wasn't like anything super deep with it initially other than just MMA cages, their desires and then their obsessions.
This is a bit of a fun question. This is an MMA romance. Are we going to see more of the MMA aspect in book two?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And there's a fight that was teased in book 1 that actually ends up happening in book 2. It's probably one of my favorite parts.
I'm like mentally scrolling back in my head.
It's very like it's mentioned, it's like a couple throwaway lines, but yeah.
I think I know which one it is. I love being a beta reader for this one because if I happen to miss something, I can just try to recall comments other people made so I'll remember. I do have a non-duet related question. This comes from an ARC reader from the PR company. They were curious if, as far as alpha and beta reading, if you were ever planning to open up your permanent team again.
For betas,
Yes.
possibly. It kind of depends. Life depends. My alpha readers are like, nobody wants to you don't want to alpha read for me. It's a mess and you don't want to. But possibly I always look at like my beta team and check in with them if they can, if they don't want to do it anymore or they can't, or if there's, for this one especially, I like checked in I sent them the triggers and I said, I understand if you don't want to be a part of this. Everyone agreed, everyone was fine with it. But so I might. Everything change, things change all the time, so it's always possible.
I think right now we're in very much of a, we're in January, we're starting a new year, people are filling their spots. I know who this is now after asking it. And she is very much a she's not so much as an arc reader as she is the other side of things.
Mm,
So I'm not surprised that she wanted to know.
got it.
She's the one who got me into beta reading, so I'm not surprised. And I might have like
Well, that's not fair.
the number of books she has done that to me though,
That's fair.
harmony justice.
Even it out.
I do have a couple of one-liners. Someone said, this is from Chasing Books PR. They said, I don't know if there's a single unhighlighted word in this book. I'm already counting down the days for book two because I know it's going to be just as good and I can't wait to not be able to put it down while I'm reading. Another person said, P.S. I absolutely love this one. I can't wait for part two. This one made me laugh. I think it's a beta reader. They said, I don't know why you did that cliffhanger the way you did. That wasn't nice.
Sorry.
And it's just like in very like sentence period, sentence period.
Sorry.
Someone said, Cain is mine. I have rights to him. I also feel like I might know who that one is. I feel like you might know who that one
I
is.
feel like yeah.
I'll have to investigate after we get off.
I have gotten a couple messages like that though, and it is funny because there's either you love Cain or you hate him.
Speaking of hating on Cain, someone said, I really hope Max, Drew, and Adam all go on Cain for how he accidentally might have set off a chain reaction going into book two.
He makes up.
Another one said, I don't know if Kane's going to be redeemed, but then they ellipsed and they like entered a lot and they said, but I'm also really partial to Adam and Drew, so I'm very biased.
I hope he does. I feel like he gets there in book two. He has to accept things.
He has to accept that there'll be three of them, or there won't be anything at all
Yep,
for him.
exactly. It's what I choose. So you want Max, you get the other two.
Yeah. Another person said, can I just be the meat in this sandwich? And I was like, very confused, but I guess it makes sense if she's talking about Adam and Drew, maybe? Or all three of
Yeah,
them, question mark.
all of them, I think.
Another one said Max's story resonated with her, and the way that you wrote her trying to find her own life just kind of brought to light that challenge without spoiling too much. But it was done in a way that also showed how she still wanted to find, herself along the way. And she actually put more than just the one line. She said it was near and dear to her because she knew people who had gone through similar challenges, and seeing the way Max strove for life just kind of made her realize everyone has their own struggle and not everyone finds that peace as fast. And we all know Max is a tenuous piece up
Yes.
until the last chapter. I have another cliffhanger one, and then we'll go back to questions. Someone said, I read this book so fast, and I said, Maddie never leaves me on a cliffhanger. And then she said, I feel like I just put the worst karma onto myself, putting
I
that into the universe.
mean,
I
it's
feel
a
like we all felt
duet.
that way.
Yeah. I mean, it's a duet, so it wasn't going to be, but it is.
On the top, going off that one liner though, when you did write it and you decided to make it two books, was it hard finding all the material for book two and kind of elongating their story?
No, that was the problem, was there was so much. So what happened was I was about 80,000 words into Desires, and I was like, oh, there's all of these things that still need to happen. So either this is going to be, you know, 900 page book, ugh, or I could split it in two. And so I talked to Megan a lot, and I was like, I really don't want to do it. I don't want to make it a duet. But then, really like thinking about everything that needed to happen, it was either the ending was going to get rushed or it was going to be a duet. And I didn't want to rush the ending. And I was really happy about it as I was writing it when I was like 20, 30,000 words into Obsessions. I was like, oh, yeah, no, this needed to happen because there's just no way.
So, kind of on the topic of two books still, when you set down to write Max's story, we get a chunk in book one, but a ton of people and me want to know, are we finally going to see her kind of, because I don't want to say hiding, but she is kind of hiding from her past up to this point. Are we going to see her face it and kind of have that come hither moment with her parents where she's just like, I'm done. Like, I am no longer part of this anymore.
She has found her strength and she shows it in book two. That is what I will say.
I have another question you may not be a fan of, but this came, I believe, from a street team member, I believe, and they want to know if you had any favorite scenes in this first book that you just enjoyed writing, or maybe a scene that had you giggling and you're like, they're not gonna like this.
The snake. I was like, I could say a sweet one, but then I was like, no, the snake. I was looking forward to that. And I actually wrote that. Sometimes I'll write scenes out of order. Like if they come to me, I'll write a scene and then plug it in where it fits later. And that was one because I was like, no, I'm excited to write that. And so I wrote that one before I got there. And then, yeah.
For those of us who have read it, we know exactly who and where that scene is. And I think I'm still surprised at who it was. But like, I'm surprised but not surprised,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like, I was surprised when I read it because I didn't see that coming, and then I was like, but it kind of makes sense in an odd way.
Liked it so much that not the same thing, but something like that also happens in book two.
Oh, this is a fun one. Cain does a lot of questionable things at night with Max. Not dirty things, so guys, get that out of your heads. I'm trying to figure, that's not the question I'm getting at.
Okay.
I'm kind of getting at his stalkerish Tinder. I was trying to find a nice way to say it, but
He is.
I can't really, flower it up at anyway. He likes to watch your house, and at least I know a ton of people when we were beta reading had snarky comments about how Max just needed to take a baseball bat or like threaten him or like walk away or like, but when you look back on it after finishing, Cain wouldn't be Cain without those parts because that's just who he is. He has like mode 0, mode 1000.
Yeah, he has no middle. And originally he was not going to be that stalkery. He was going to be pushy, but not like so stalkery. And then he turned into that. And I was like, "Oh, well, that makes sense actually, because it just shows how deep and serious his obsession with her was from like the start."
And of course, that adds to the darker element. For the three of them, would Cain be the darkest of the three in terms of his personality traits in your mind?
Yeah. I think, yeah. And he was shaped differently in his life because he came from privilege where like Drew and Adam didn't. And I think that there's like that shaped him in a different way, but it also made him darker, like more morally gray because he is. Yeah, but I think so. Yeah, I think they all have, in a way, they each have their own, but yeah, Cain is probably the most morally gray.
Most questionable.
Most questionable, yeah.
I'm really excited for you to turn him around because I know I was one of the ones in his hater camp at the end of book one. Mainly because of events at the end. We all know how that happened.
Yeah.
I'm really ready for him to get the riot act read to him. Like, dude, you're 28. Act like it. I do think one of my favorite parts, though, is actually like a very small, innocuous part But it was one of the scenes where I think it was Adam was being weird about how him and Drew are kind of together, but kind of not. And I think it was Cain who just walks up and he was like, everyone knows.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was just like, finally.
Yeah, they weren't hiding it, but yeah. I think that goes back to the emotional constipation though. They're like, oh, nothing, nothing's happening, it's not whatever, but then it's like, no, everyone knows, okay? Just
I don't know why I found that so funny, but I just found it hilarious.
that is funny.
I have one question. This came actually, it might have come from, I don't know if it was an ARC reader through you or through the PR company, but they were curious if the coach athlete dynamic is going to be explored more in book two, especially coming off like the power imbalance and the way it can be portrayed in the media today. If we're going to see Adam and Drew kind of have that evolution of more of an even playing field than coach, player, and have the jump they need to go through.
I think Drew learns to accept his role a little bit better because he got injured. So it does create more even playing field.
Is Adam and Drew. They're very contentious when we end part one. Will we see more of their bond develop as we get into book two?
Oh yeah. Yes, very much so. They, my sweet emotional constipated boys, they are really, yeah, the story ends up focusing a lot more on the guys. Like it's still focused on Max too, but part one was definitely her. And then part two, we get more into all the guys and like their relationships with her, with each other, their past, all of it. So, yes, very much so.
Are any of their past gonna break our hearts?
Yes.
I love the face you make. You're like, I'm not gonna say it, but it does.
Yeah, they're pretty sad.
I think I know which one's gonna hurt me the most. It's not a shocker to anyone who beta read with us because there's very much one that I love over all the others. And I know his past is gonna hurt. I
Mhm.
do have a question though, kind of off Adam and Drew. So we see the cliffhanger, and we see kind of who causes the cliffhanger by opening his mouth. Are we gonna see an epic reaction from the other guys in the group when they find out what happened?
Yes, Cain is still the most unhinged. That's just who he is. But they all, in their own way, are very determined. I'll say that. They're determined.
Can you go into kind of, for those of you tuning in later, Uncaged Desires is a darker romance, and it does have some triggers um, in Max's story in this first part. What parts were the hardest for you as a writer to kind of dive into the mind of a character struggling and trying to overcome this past that she had?
Hmm. It's interesting because I don't like I feel like when I write, I very much disassociate and I'm like it's like in the story, like my own personal feelings aren't involved, my own like opinions, my own thoughts and opinions and things aren't the forefront of my mind. It's really just them and the characters. So I tend to not actually have an emotional reaction as I'm writing. When I go back and read it, that's a little bit different. But as I'm writing it and getting it out, it's almost like an out of body experience as it's happening. So there wasn't like anything super hard when I was writing it. The hardest things came rereading stuff in part two, honestly.
And this one is a art team question. You may not be able to answer it, but they want to know the friendship that Max is starting to form with the girl that she meets kind of at the bar and then runs into
Tanner.
over and over again. Are we going to see their bond grow and develop as we get into book two?
Yeah. Danner's involved in book two quite a bit.
And this is the part you may not be able to answer, but someone asked, and they really wanted me to ask you this. Will we ever possibly see Danner's story?
I knew that was gonna be a thing.
You knew I was going to ask this
I
one.
knew it was gonna come up as soon as Danner, if you saw my face, I was like, oh, it's gonna come. So I first gave Danner and Cal and Alexander, some other fighters at the gym, different names that I didn't want to use in a book because I did not want to write a story. Did not want to write it. And then I was forced to change them so that it's a possibility. So maybe someday Danner's will have her story. She's very mysterious. I know some things about her, and other things are still a mystery. And then she's one tough bee, though.
I love her character in the first part because you drop her in at the best times and then she leaves and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Did she come in just to say that one thing and then be like, peace, yo, I'm out of here? Yeah, she did.
Yeah, she did.
And I'm excited to kind of see Max have a true female friend
Hmm.
because that's always one of my favorite parts in the book, whether it be like a strong, like, guy friendship on the guy side or a strong female friend on the girl's point of view side,
Hmm.
especially in a darker romance where sometimes you just need that friend outside of the romance part that
Yeah.
is connected. This one's going to be a fun one for you. And I promise you won't hate me for it because this one's actually one that you'll love to answer. So, what scene, excluding the snake scene, was your favorite to write in Uncaged Desires?
Forest.
That was a great one too.
As far as like spicy, because it is really funny. But there's a scene on the beach with Max and Drew, and there's like a vulnerability that I actually really enjoyed because I do like when you get to see like a oh moment. So I actually really liked that moment between them a lot.
Going off your answer, I think it was a street team question, or it might have been a question I pulled from the beta comments that was not a true question, but I can formulate it into a question. When in a white juice, there's multiple love interests, and they're each different. Reading this book, Drew and Max seem to almost be like twin flames or twin souls that so much of their story seems similar, given we don't know a lot of Drew yet, but they just understand each other in a way. Almost from the instant you introduced Drew to Max in the gym when he was like, I cannot have her come in here. And then we all know how that went.
Yeah.
But was that always how you were going to write, the two of them in this first part?
So, yes and no. Like, definitely with her, she has something with each guy that the other ones don't understand. Cain and her have a very similar childhood story, so like a level that the other guys don't understand. Drew has these like demons basically in his mind, for lack of a better word, that as soon as he sees Max, and I think he says that it's like, oh, her demons seem like the ones that'll play well with mine. Like, that's one of the first things he thinks. And then like Adam has almost like a caring thing. Like, so they all have their own thing, and I knew that, though I didn't know exactly what it would be starting off. But everyone has their own specialness with her.
So this week, the cover for book 2 came out.
Mhm.
And can you go into the color choice and if it's going to play a role in anything we get out of book 2?
Not necessarily the color choice. I kind of left that up to Kim, my cover designer. I did for the first one say I wanted red. And then on this one, what I said was I wanted blood on the flowers. And she did do that. So there's not really anything with the color other than it's pretty. But the blood on the flowers, that's something.
Are there any hints as we start to close out that you can give us for what to expect in book 2?
More Danner, more depth to everybody. I think that's the best word to use. For all of them.
For all of them.
Yeah.
Will we ever see a Max Adam and Drew scene? And you're looking at me like, Leslie, you didn't need to ask this question, but you would be surprised at how many people wanted me to ask so they could get confirmation before they read book two. I do have a question that you might not be able to answer yet, mainly because book two is not out, so it's kind of further futuristic. But for the Denver Dragons, you did write kind of a bonus epilogue that touched on all the books years out. And someone is already asking, will we see that for this duet? Or will
See,
it be included in like an extended epilogue in book two?
for what, the Sully that I wrote, the
Yeah,
or
but
more Jennifer
have it be
Dragons?
with Max and her boys.
I'm confused.
So someone wants to know, so you wrote the Sully, which is the Denver Dragons, but they're curious if we'll ever get one for Max.
For the Uncaged.
And I know it's far in advance.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where their story goes beyond the end of the second one. I don't know.
It sounds like Danner's story may need to happen first.
Danner, Danner is something.
It's not anything we can prepare ourselves for.
No, no. She came out of left field. She was not gonna be what she is, and then I was like, oh yeah, no, she's got a store. She's something.
I'm not gonna lie, there was a moment when I was reading this, and I believe someone else in our beta team noted it too, where we thought you were gonna throw us for a loop and have Danner be a fourth
Oh
added on.
no,
And then we saw the friendship, and I was like, no, no, this needs to stay.
yeah,
Um,
that's
strong female
platonic.
friend. Let's go make bad choices with the fighters at the gym.
Yeah, that would be a lot of people. It's already enough with
And,
four.
and Danner and Cain in the same room. Let's take a minute.
Listen, you see it in part two. You see it. It's like brother and sister. Two very strong personalities.
I feel like they'll either get along great, or like cats and dogs.
Cats and dogs.
Cats and dogs. So I'll start going into my broad questions. Only have a few, but as a writer, what do you enjoy to like read in your free time, or are you more into like movies or something not reading?
Oh no, I read. I read. I am a mood writer and a mood reader. So I read all sorts of stuff. Dark romance, sports, dark sports, small town, um, why choose or or MMFF, like whatever. Anything and everything. I'm reading Pucking Obsessed by London Snow right now. It's an arc. I'm just very behind on reading it. But I was like kind of reading at the same time as Don't You Dare by C.E. Ricky. And so very different things.
I don't think I've read CC Ricky.
C.E.
She
Ricky.
has the MM
She does
hockey.
MMM. Yeah, one of them. Yeah, Iced Out is hockey.
I haven't read
But
that
yeah,
one.
she does
It's
all
on my
MM.
list. It's on my list. I've been in after this one I kind of went into like a large family, small town, heroes, a dirty talking hero vibe.
Do like.
So I've been in like the opposite realm after this one.
That's honestly, yeah, that's where I'm going next with writing.
I had 5 extremely dark arcs and 2 extremely dark alpha projects. Not including this beta one that I still need to finish for you, which is due Sunday. I'll get it in before the due date.
Okay.
I've like read through it all. I just didn't comment. It was so good.
Thank you.
I got so distracted. I was like, I'm at the end. And I was like, ooh, let's go back.
Alright.
So
No
that'll get
cliffhanger this
done.
time.
But yeah, no, I had some dark ones, so I was like, I need like a palette cleanse. And now I'm kind of like, I need like a palette cleanse from my palette cleanse.
I get it.
But
I get it.
so you had 2 arcs. Are there any other books coming out you're excited to be able to read now that you might have a little bit of a break towards the end of this month?
We'll have a break. I have to look at my Kindle. I am so behind on so many books. Like the latest LC Silver, what I don't even know what the one with the orange.
Oh, I just finished that one.
What is it? Wild, is that Wild?
Wild Eyes.
Yeah. See, that's been on my Kindle forever and I haven't gotten to it. And there's just been like other things that come up. So I'm like, I need to read that one.
Yeah. I just finished it in my small town, dirty talking hero era.
I'm here for it. I want to.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, now I have
Did
another
not
arc.
expect it. I listened to it. I didn't read it. I listened to it because it's Teddy Hamilton.
Mm-hmm. I also have
On
audiobooks to get to too.
Yeah. The note of audiobooks is the plan for this one in the works.
Fingers crossed, I'm waiting to hear.
Will it
It
be
will.
podium?
I don't. That's what I'm waiting to hear for.
Oh,
I'm hoping. I am hopeful that they will produce it. So we're just waiting to hear back for the green light.
so do you have a fan cast of narrators you would like to see
So
voice these
I
characters?
Okay, so I know 100% who I want as Max. I have wanted her for Max. I have wanted her for Max basically from the start. So I really, and then I have some for the guys. Obviously, if it is podium, they don't do full cast, so it would just be one, just like the hat trick was just Avery Karras and Patrick Zettler, who did amazing on it. So there's a few of the guy, like there's a few guys that I would be like, yeah, yeah. But for Max, I'm like, it's her.
I'm trying to envision who you would pick.
It's probably she's not like a big popular one, so
That doesn't help because I listen to so many that I don't know.
Macy Miller.
I actually know the name. I feel like I can put a face to the name. I'm great at knowing what they look like, but not necessarily putting their books to their face. But I'll go look after this.
She did a Jacqueline Snow one, I believe.
I feel like I know exactly who she is. I'm just blanking right now. My brain's like, just Google it after.
Get it? But yeah, she is who I want as Max.
So you've teased at it, kind of going back off into the realm of what you have planned for next. So you said next might be more of like not a cinnamon roll hero, but maybe more of a golden retriever type hero or
He's a cinnamon roll.
cinnamon roll.
He's a cinnamon roll.
Will we venture back into sports?
Yes. Not with, technically not with that one. That one, he's a firefighter. But he does barrel race. So, but not like professionally. So it's like, that's not really sports. But 2026, we come back to sports.
Is this next one the book I'm thinking of that we've been waiting for? Someone's sister?
So, no. So
No.
it is connected though. So this next one is a firefighter. So these are two new characters that have never been met before. But in this small town, Bailey Coley is there and she meets the FMC and then her book is connected to this one.
They're all coming together.
Yes. It is all one.
So, one of my penultimate questions, do you ever see yourself going darker than the Uncaged Desires and Obsessions duet?
Never say never. Never say never. We'll see. Because to some people, this has been super, super, super dark. And then other people, it's like, it's not like the darkest. So, I don't know.
And it depends on what you consider dark.
It really does. Because I'm like, oh, I don't think it's like Chantel Tessier or H.D. Carlton dark. But then other people have said it is. And I'm like, okay. So,
I haven't read part two yet, though. On
I
all
think
of
part
its
two is,
entirety.
no, I don't think
So
part
I
two.
don't. It didn't register as. I was reading it while I was reading the Ammo Jones her book that just came out. So the scales of darkness in my head were kind of like.
That's fair.
And
I
I feel
think
like
part two is less dark than part one.
it might be dark in a slightly different sense, though, because of what obviously we have to go through for their happily ever after.
Yeah, there is still dark elements. I just think that it's slightly less extreme.
So, on a fun twist, I asked you this after we had Colt's book, the favorite trope or subtrope you wrote with his story. What was your favorite one to write in Uncaged Desires?
That Cain has never kissed anyone before.
I forgot about that one. And he's like flummoxed when he learns that he actually wants to like have his first kiss. And I was like, man, you were like 30.
He's 25.
He reads more tortured. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. With some anger issues.
Yeah. But I like what I will say too about part two is I like when Max finds out
With what happened.
that she was his first kiss. She didn't know.
Oh,
She doesn't know in part one.
and my brain went to something else. I was like, with what? That horrible cliffhanger that we know so and so caused. Yeah, I'm excited for her to find out about that too. She finally has some fighting legs under her right now.
She does. She's feisty.
The last question I'm going to ask today, because we are, for anyone watching, me and Maddie are going to do another one where we're going to hopefully get out before or on release for part two. And that one will be a deep dive into everything, because at that point, nothing will be a spoiler.
Yeah.
So we don't have to monitor what we say. So that'll be a little bit more fun, kind of more down and dirty into the world of Max and her guys. And I already have some unhinged questions from people that I wasn't able to ask this time around. But we'll close out today with, do you have any plans for any not safe for work art, prints from book one, or covers like you did for the Denver Dragons?
So I do have some not safe for work art already for book one. Chelsea is trying to convince me to make them covers and make them website exclusive covers. So possibly. We will see about that. And other than that, I also have, and I'm waiting to get back, I will have an omnibus of both books that will be foiled and so pretty, but it is not safe for work. But it's going to be so pretty.
I'm still really hoping the shower scene with Colt and
Bryn becomes a cover.
Mhm.
I know. Chelsea, I know.
Yeah. I randomly throw it out there, and I feel like me, Megan, and Chelsea always amp it up, and then I like randomly disappear for weeks in the Instagram chat, and then I'm just like, okay, I'm back. Let's bring it up again.
I know. Chelsea wants that really bad.
It can be a street team thing.
Yeah. I
You
said
know,
if I
all of
do
us will
it,
get it.
see, I said if I do it, I'm making like 10 copies of it. It's super exclusive. Trying to figure it out. We'll see.
Um,
We'll see. I have
there's
some pictures.
a couple scenes that I would love to see a cover for, but it would be hard for this one because I don't have any scenes with all of them together yet.
That's the problem with the 𝐌𝐚𝐝𝑢's doing it. Um, because like it was really hard to figure out a scene for the hat trick, the not safe for work hat trick cover, because I was like, what scene are they all together? That's like can be done. So
I guess book one could be Max and Cain, and book two could be Adam, Drew, and Max. I don't know.
feel bad leaving them out.
But together, they'll all be together.
I know.
Or it could be Drew and Adam on book two.
Yeah. I
Oh.
feel bad. I want them.
But thank you guys for tuning in. I know me and Maddie we have two clips merging into one for this first one. So thank you for your patience as we post this episode, and for the slight delay. We know we didn't get it out quite at release, but it'll be great for all of you watching. Drop questions if you have them in the comments. I always try to get them answered. If they're a question that could be answered in part two coming at the end of this month, I will do my best to get them on the form to ask when we sit down again at the end of February for the final discussion into Max and her men and everything unhinged and deviant that happens across this duet. But thank you, Maddie, for joining me, and thank you for all being patient and for all the struggles we had, but we
Yeah, thank you.
persevered through it. So I will go ahead and end this, and then I just have a few things I want to talk to you before we kind of like end the call.